Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to show you how to fix a Pride Mobility Jazzy Air 2 that is showing a joystick fault. If you're not familiar with the Pride Jazzy Air 2, it's an elevating full-size power wheelchair, and I'm showing you the elevation feature here. What we noticed is that this particular power wheelchair, when you power it on the joystick, 7 of the lights would flash continuously. And with this VR2 joystick controller, the 7 flash code means there's a joystick fault. We investigated and we found out it was actually the cable, not the joystick itself. Now, before I get started, I do want to tell you about our product catalog. It's free. If you want to learn more about our products, get discount codes, go to our website, mobilitydirect.com. Click on the green button at the top of every page that says free catalog. Fill out the simple short form, and you'll get one in the mail within 1 to 2 weeks tops. It's got all of our latest products, and we also want to tell you about our monthly mobility scooter giveaway. Like the last few winners you're seeing on the screen now, all you have to do to be part of our monthly giveaway is subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's pretty easy to do. You're already here. It's free. Just subscribe and comment. You do need to leave a comment so we can get in touch with you. So if you want to join that giveaway, like I said, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and you might be the next lucky winner. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So again, what we realized through some testing, we took the unit apart, we bypassed the extension cable for the joystick. Because it is an elevating power wheelchair, the cable that is connected to the joystick controller is not long enough to reach the base, so there is an extension cable for the joystick, and it appears that that extension cable got pinched somehow, and the wires probably broke within the sleeve. You couldn't actually see any visible damage to the wire. That's the length of the cable for the joystick that's connected to the joystick, and we removed the panels, we checked everything, and that's the extension cable that goes from the controller to the connection point on the joystick cable. So it's about 4 feet, and again, that was the issue. So we originally thought we had to replace the joystick, but we found out we didn't. And the customer was happy. They got to save some money. So you'll notice that the joystick cable gets wrapped around the armrest, and then it goes under the seat towards the front, and then it goes down through the scissor lifting mechanism, and then it goes all the way to the controller, which I've already disassembled and taken out. So there's 2 screws that hold the controller in place. You do need to remove the body panels. All that's pretty straightforward. We will show you how to do all that, but you are going to need some familiarity. This video is basically for technicians or people that are really handy with tools and know their way around low voltage motor powered devices such as mobility scooters, power wheelchairs, even golf carts. A lot of these machines kind of work the same way. So here's the extension cable. Again, that's the piece that was bad, right? So we had to replace that piece. And the process is pretty straightforward. We will walk you through the entire process, but here what we're doing is we're showing you the joystick has that cable attached to it. It's part of the joystick. And then you have the connection from the joystick cable that routes across the 90-degree part of the armrest underneath the seat. There's some loops there that you can use to tie your cable and any excess pieces of cable, and then it routes down through the scissor lift mechanism, and then it routes to the front underneath the seat where the joystick wire cable connects to the controller. Okay, so first step, okay, we have to remove the body panels. Okay, and there's some hand screws on the top. In the rear side, there's actually 2 body panels. Depending on what color you ordered, you might have different colors. We had the red one in this case. The customer bought the red Jazzy Air 2. So you remove the 2 hand screws. You don't have to physically remove them all the way. You just have to loosen them up enough. And then the front, you basically just push towards the rear of the base, and then it unhooks and it comes straight off. So there's no hardware or screws that you have to remove to take off the front piece. All right, so next what you want to do is go ahead and put the chair in neutral mode so that you can move it around freely. Obviously, we're not going to be fixing anything with the batteries connected, so we'll remove the batteries. There are 2 screws, one on each side of the automatic brake levers to disengage the brakes, and we're removing those first. Okay, so there you'll see on the front of the scooter those 2 screws, and then 2 screws on the top part of that body panel, which is basically the plastic paneling that has the lights built into them. So you'll want to remove the 2 screws there. So you can see on the left and the right side there are some screws at the top, and before just ripping that piece of panel out, make sure you disconnect the cables for the lights. It doesn't have turn signal, so it really doesn't matter if you plug in the left one to the right connector. They're just lights to illuminate the path in front of you. Now what we're doing is we're removing the body panels that cover up the battery compartments. Simple little yellow hand screws, no tools required for that. And then you disconnect the battery cable harness, which is a quick release. Don't need any tools for that. So again, we'll do each side. There's 2 batteries, one on the left, one on the right. Just remove those yellow hand screws, take the batteries out. And what we're showing you now is we're going to start disassembling the plates, and it's basically like a cover system for all the wiring and components that are part of that scissor lifting mechanism, right? So you can see the threaded shaft there, which rotates, and that's what allows the chair to lift up and down. You're going to need a hex set, a driver hex set, and I'm removing a total of 6 screws that are hex bolt heads. Once you get those 6 pieces removed, you really want to pay attention to how everything comes out, because there are multiple pieces for that covering, not just one cover, it's 2 covers. So you have an external cover and then a main cover. And then as you start to take everything apart, you're going to see that the wires run really tightly inside of that area where, you know, the scissor lifting mechanism is made of. The whole assembly there, you've got wires, and I'm just showing you, you know, the process after we already got done with the job. But you can clearly see that when you take those covers off, you'll see the wires zip tied to the frame. And this is the job before we got started. You'll see all the wires for the joystick were kind of zip tied to those tie down loops on the bottom of the seat. There is excess wire. It's not the perfect fit, so it's just manufactured that way. So once you cut all those zip ties and loosen up that cable, you can remove the body panels and then remove the controller. So there's 2 screws, one on each side of the controller, and that's what's going to hold down the controller. You will need to remove those 2 screws and kind of flip over the controller, which is right above the yellow levers on the front, just where the footplate kind of area is. And when you flip it over, you're going to see some zip ties holding all those wires together, and all the wires kind of feeding back into the base from the front of the controller. It goes underneath. You're going to see these little clips that are used to keep the screws in place. Make sure you don't knock those out by mistake and lose them. That's basically the threading for the bolts to bite onto. And what we're doing now is we got the extension cable, the new one, we replaced it, and now we're just rerouting the wire back the way it was so that we can put everything back together. Really not too difficult of a repair here. The most time-consuming part is taking apart the covers for the scissor lifting assembly and then routing all the wires back where they belong. It's a really compact fit. You know, you have to be very careful and meticulous as far as how you route those wires. They should be done the exact same way. When you take it apart, take pictures, take videos so that you can see exactly how those wires were routed. And if you're replacing the joystick or the joystick and the extension cable, just make sure you put everything back the way it was. So the joystick has a secondary cable that I'm routing with it, and that's just a switch for the lights. So both of those wires are kind of being routed together from the front part of the armrest, then down after the 90-degree, and then all the excess piece of wire. It has probably about an extra 1.5 feet, anywhere from a 1.5 feet to 2 feet of excess wire. So you're going to want to kind of bunch that up as neatly as you can and then zip tie it to the frame of the seat that the seat sits on. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just, make it look neat. Don't have any wires kind of hanging out that can get hooked onto anything as the rider is, navigating around the home or anywhere. You don't want anything to hook onto those wires and get ripped out. So you want to make sure it's nice and tight. That's what I'm doing here. Excuse the bad shot here. We basically did this, I basically filmed this as a one-man show here while doing the repair. Didn't really have a proper cameraman to do this job for us, but we wanted to put this out there for anyone to basically see what it's like to take apart the Jazzy Air 2. You can kind of see a lot of different components in this video and get to know really how the Jazzy Air 2 works. So here we have the cable, the new cable for the extension for the joystick cable, and we're having to route it exactly where the original one went through, right? So you have a little slot that it fits through just perfectly, and you do need to kind of fish it through with, you know, whatever means you can. It's not easy, especially if you have big hands. So we're routing it through, and I'm kind of showing you exactly where it's going to feed through, right? So on the left side battery compartment, you'll see there's a little notch there in the frame. That's for the cable. And then there's a little C-clip to bite onto that cable and keep it secure so it's not wiggling around or anything as the rider is, you know, using their scooter on a day-to-day basis. You want that wire to stay perfectly still and not move about, get loose. So now that you have the cable routed from the controller back through the base on the left side of the left battery there, you're going to need to route it up through the scissor lifting mechanism area. And be careful with that big main threaded shaft. It is covered in grease and it will get you dirty and stain your clothes if you're not careful. So that joystick cable now that's coming from the controller gets routed up with a few other cables too that you're going to see. It's routing through a specific hole. So you want to make sure you get everything nice and tight. Get the wires to be not super tight, but also not super loose. You don't want wires getting pinched as the seat lift is going up and down. You can easily cut those wires if it's not secured tightly to that black part of the scissor lifting assembly. And you're going to see what I'm talking about here in just a second. So what I'm doing is just kind of getting all the wires tight enough to where I can start to zip tie them to that black piece of the scissor lifting mechanism. And loosely, I'm putting a zip tie up high on the first little loop there, which is actually a transit tie down loop. And I've got it loose enough to where I can still pull the wire through if I need to. And I'm kind of just visualizing now, sorry for the bad shot, but I'm basically just getting all the wires lined up and making sure that they're in the right position to not get pinched. And I'm going to start zip tying everything. There is a little clamp with a bolt that you use to keep the wires out of the way towards the top. So that's what I'm installing now. It's a little white plastic clip that's used to secure the wires, and that's what I'm securing to the scissor lifting assembly. Now there's a little screw hole for it, and depending on if you have it, you know, going to the right or the left side of the chair, you can, you know, switch the orientation of the joystick. You could put it on the left or the right side. In this case, it was on the right side. You know, we secured that clip to the right side of the scissor lifting assembly. And now what I'm going to do is get more zip ties and basically just secure the wires that are running from the base all the way up to the top of the seat. And again, you want to be careful. Make sure nothing's going to get in the way of the parts of the scissor lifting assembly that could potentially pinch those wires and break the wires and cause any kind of, you know, damage to the wires. So keep them off to the side. Here you can see I've got the wires kind of pushed off to the side so nothing's going to really get pinched. And I'm just going to zip tie with 2 or 3 zip ties all of those wires. I believe it's 3 different wires that are running up that scissor lifting assembly. And I'm using another zip tie down low. So we'll go ahead and keep going here, secure the wire set to that assembly. And if you have any questions along the way, or you don't have any comments at all, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment down below. Whether you have a question, a comment, a concern, or a request for a different type of repair, we respond to every single comment within 1 business day in most cases. And again, just by leaving that comment and subscribing, you could win a free mobility scooter. All right, folks, so we're just about done with the zip ties here. And again, this is the Jazzy Air 2. Awesome power wheelchair. Unfortunately, something happened where the wire did get pinched, but we don't really get too many repair requests at all. In fact, this is the first time we received a repair in the Bonita Springs location for this particular model. We've sold quite a few of them. They're very dependable. This is the Jazzy Air 2. The original had a straight lift mechanism, but I kind of like this scissor lifting mechanism a little bit better. There were some issues with the Jazzy Air 1 and the elevator kind of style lifting mechanism. especially with the sensors, but I haven't had any issues with the Jazzy Air 2, which is the new and improved version. All right, at this point, before I seal everything back up, call me crazy, but I like to test everything out, right? Before we put the body panels back on, before we button everything up. So I'm just powering up the batteries to see if that 7 flash code went away, right? So we installed the new joystick extension cable. Everything is connected. Batteries are being installed now just temporarily, and I'm going to power it up just to make sure it works. All right, so there you go. Solid battery meter status, and the chair is moving with the joystick as it should. Now, remember before it had that 7 beep code. If you refer to the user manual and you have any other error codes, you kind of know how to take it apart now. Sure, I mean, there's different things that you will have to learn how to do, but you know, if it has bad batteries, you know how to replace the batteries. If it has a bad motor, you can see where the motors are. Sure, changing the motors is going to be a really difficult job, totally different job in and of itself. You will have to break down much further the base. You'll have to take out the motors, take out the wires, reconnect everything. But at least you have an idea now, and in the future we will work on making more repair videos for every product. So make sure you subscribe, check out our playlists. We have playlists for every single model that we carry pretty much. So this is me kind of showing you that it is going up and down. So we're testing the lifting feature, and you can see it's going down. I'm doing it softly, slowly, just making sure none of the wires are going to get pinched. That's really important. You can see the wires look fine. They're not getting pinched by anything as I'm lowering and lifting the seat using the joystick. So now that I know everything's working fine, I'm just cutting the excess pieces of zip ties, and I'm going to start to rebuild this thing. First, we're going to put the plate back on, the main plate, and there's going to be a total of 6 screws to secure the plates. So the first plate you put on is the main plate. It's a much larger plate that's made out of like a plastic. And you know, you should have taken pictures and documented the process while taking it apart if it's the first time you're taking one apart. In this case, we're going to start with the top screws, just finger tight, and then go on down to the bottom screws. Now, once you have that main plate installed, you're going to want to go ahead and put on the secondary plate, which is a metal plate. You can kind of see the indentation in the center part of that main plate there where it goes. So we'll go ahead and fast forward through this part a little bit and just secure the screws. All right, now that we're done securing the screws for the plastic plate, we're going to go ahead and secure the metal plate, which is kind of what I would call the secondary plate cover for the scissor lifting assembly. It's much smaller, but it is metal, and that you can see it fits only one way. And there's 2 screws that are used to secure that metal plate. So go ahead and tighten those 2 screws up, and we'll fast forward through that. And there you go. Now everything's covered back up as far as the scissor lifting assembly. Next, what we want to do is secure the controller back. Now, you see those little clips that I'm playing with? You need to make sure that they're lined up perfectly with the holes so that, you know, the screws can go in through those clips and through the frame, the metal part of the frame, and you'll have the threading, you know, lock in, or else you'll have some issues. So make sure that the clips are lined up. There's a hole on the clip and a hole on the frame. You want to make sure those holes are lined up so your screw will go in freely, and then you just tighten down those 2 screws, one on the left, one on the right. It's pretty straightforward. We'll fast forward through that. And we're almost at the finish line at this point. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, you know, secure the cables. Like I said, there is excess cable, so you'll just want to zip tie them to the seat there in a way that's clean. You know, don't have anything hanging out too loose that can get caught on a door handle or a cabinet handle, you know, as your customer, or you if you're doing your own repair, so you don't snag onto anything as you're moving about. These motors are pretty powerful, so if you do hook onto something as you're moving along, well, that wire is going to rip right out pretty easily. So just make sure you secure everything nice and tight. Make sure you cut the excess pieces of zip tie carefully. They can be sharp. if you don't cut them properly. All right, so now we're going to install the batteries properly. So we put the batteries in the cradle. There are some straps for the batteries just to keep them secure. So you want to have the straps, strap down the batteries properly, if you will. One on the left, one on the right, and then put the covers back on. With the yellow hand screws, there's not much to it. You just want to make sure that they line up with the holes and tighten down those yellow hand screws. Again, there's two batteries, so you're going to want to do the left and the right side the same way. They're two 12-volt, 35 amp hour sealed lead acid batteries. You could technically upgrade them to lithium, but we haven't done that with this particular model. It would make it a lot lighter and last a lot longer. So here we're putting the panel back on with the lights. Just connect the two clips. They're two little white clips with two wires on each clip. No wrong way to do it. Again, these aren't turn signals, so you can just connect the two wires any way you want. And then remember, there are a set of 4 screws that you'll need to install to secure that lighting body panel, if you will, with the 4 screws, 2 being on the top, 2 being on the bottom by the brakes. So we'll start with the top 2 first. There's one on the right, one on the left. Just line up the screw holes with the frame, where there's 2 holes on the frame, to match up and pair with those screw holes on the body panel. Tighten them down, and then move on to the front 2 screw holes and screws that are on either side of the automatic brake levers. So there's 2 brakes because there's 2 motors. So you will see those 2 brake levers. Make sure you put them in the locked position before starting your unit, otherwise it won't work. If you get 5 flashes when you turn on your joystick controller, that means the brakes are in the neutral position. The brakes do need to be in the locked position for safety. And if you do run out of batteries, those brakes can become disengaged so that you can manually push the chair where you need to take it to get the batteries changed. All right, so at this point, we're just going to go ahead and put the body panels back on. The front body panel is pretty straightforward. There's some little hooks and some slots, so you want to line up those hooks with the slots and then give it a little push forward. It'll lock into place. And then the back body panel, there's kind of like a little tongue and groove system. So you'll want to line up the notches, slide them into the front body panel. So the back body panel has 2 kind of teeth that slide into slots located on the front body panel. You'll want to interlock them and then tighten down the 2 hand screws. And that's it, folks. So we successfully repaired it by replacing the joystick extension cable, right? The same process would have been followed if we had to replace the entire joystick, but we were able to save the customer some money on that replacement joystick. Customer was happy. Customer's joystick is working again. And that's going to conclude our repair tutorial for the Jazzy Air 2. We really appreciate your support, appreciate you sticking through the entire video, watching it all the way through. Hopefully you did enjoy it. If you didn't, let us know what we could have done better in the comment section below. Again, I'm Sergio with Mobility Direct. If you have any questions, leave us a comment, visit our website with the links in the description below. Until next time, everybody, have a great day.